Here I'll be talking to you about this book, Talbees Iblees. This is an introduction of famous book written by al-Imam Ibn al-Jawzi. He's written a book called Talbees Iblees. The Talbees Iblees roughly translates as deception of Iblis. Okay, Talbees, it means to cover something, or to conceal something, or to mix something up, basically mixing up. So deception of Iblis. Iblis, okay, most of us probably know Iblis. Iblis was the one who refused to perform sajda, prostrate to Adam alayhi salam when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do so, commanded the angels to do so, and he attempted to influence Adam alayhi salam in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, and because of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala banished him from Jannah, and eventually what happened was that he made a promise to Allah that he would try to deviate man and everyone until the day of judgment as much as he could. Now may Allah save us from him. The author al-Imam Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, you've probably heard of him, famous scholar. Okay, his full name is al-Hafiz al-Imam Jamaluddin Abil Faraj Abdul Rahman Ibn al-Jawzi al-Baghdadi. He used to live in Baghdad, or he was from Baghdad, and he passed away in the year 597. So if we go to our timeline quickly, we can see that he comes roughly about here. Okay, so he comes about here, appears here. Here's where he passed away, and here, let's say, is the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are roughly about here, let's say, to us today. Okay, so you can see how far back he came, roughly 800 years before us. Okay, now which works out to be 13th or 14th century according to the Gregorian calendar. If you want to know more about the timeline, then you can look at the clip that I've made on timeline. Now going back to the book, so al-Imam al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he's famous for the books that he's written. Many books that he had, hundreds of books he's written. The book is basically what he's done. He's compiled a book on the different ways Iblis tries to deceive man. So if we quickly go down into the introduction. Okay, introduction is roughly about 4 pages. Basically what he says is that Allah Ta'ala has created the Sharia, given us the Sharia, which is like the sun. Analogy is like the sun, and he's given man intellect, which is like the eye. So just as an eye can perceive the sun if it's sound, and if it has any defect, then it becomes very difficult to be able to even perceive the sun. So similarly is the intellect of man, and Shaitan is always trying, or Iblis is always trying to deceive man, in whatever way, in any type of life, any person, male, female, old, young, all these types of people, Iblis tries to deceive. Now, so what he's done is mentioned in the introduction that what I've tried to do is I've tried to list all the deceptions that he tries, or the tactics that he uses in deceiving people, so that people can protect themselves. He mentions a famous narration in the Sahihain. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu said that people used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about good, وَكُنْتُ أَسْأَلُهُ عَنْ الشَّرِّ, and I would ask him about evil, مَخَافَةَ أَنْ يُدْرِكْنِي, out of fear that it may reach me. Okay, so this is what he's attempted to do. Okay, so going to what the book comprises of. The book comprises of 13 chapters. Okay, let's just go through the 13 chapters. Chapter number 1 is fil amri bil luzum sunnah wal jama'ah, holding fast to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the jama'ah, the mainstream. Because person, he leaves the mainstream, then it's very easy for Iblis to attack that person. Al-Bab al-Thani, second chapter, fi dham al-bid'a wal mubtadi'een, in dispraising the bid'ah, innovations and those innovators. Because innovations and innovators, if a person doesn't know what an innovation is, then it's very easy for that person to fall into something new in religion which is not part of religion. Hence Iblis takes him away from the religion, and this has been going on since the early days. The third chapter, في التحذير من فتن إبليس ومكائده, make people aware or cautious about the fitan of Iblis and his tactics, of his plans and traps. So what kind of traps does he use against people, etc. So these are also things that people should know about to save themselves, just as any person who tries to save themselves from falling into a pit. A person should know about the pits of shaitan. The fourth chapter, في معنى التلبيس or supposed to be talbees, is a mistake, Talbees or talbees wal-ghurur. Okay, the meaning, literal linguistic meaning and meaning in Sharia, technical meaning of talbees and ghurur. Alright, talbees, so mixing things up, and ghurur, deception. What are the meanings of this? The fifth chapter, dhikru talbisi. Now here, after the fifth chapter up to the end, he mentions Iblis's deception with regards to different types of people. Okay, so all of these are the different types of people. So his deception with regards to aqidah, beliefs and religions. So he lists philosophers, how he deceives philosophers, how he deceives atheists, how he deceives pagans, how he deceives idol worshippers, all sorts he mentions. Chapter number 6, his deception with regards to ulama, scholars. Scholars are not immune to Iblis's deception. Scholars are even affected, and scholars can be deceived by shaitan many times in their sciences, in their knowledge. All these things shaitan uses, or Iblis uses, to attack. The seventh is talbisuhu, his deception in the wulat. Okay, the rulers, salatin, sultans, the kings, the khalifas, how he deceives them as well. The 8th chapter, his deception in the ibad or ubad, the worshippers or the slaves, fi funul ibadat, in the different types of ibadat, in the different aspects of their worship, making them believe that their worship is being accepted, or other things that you can read about. The 9th chapter, it's talbisuhu ala zuhad, as those people who try and abstain from material worldly life, people who practice zuhud, ascetics, and talbis gets them as well. No one's free from this, even those who are like the zuhad. Al-Bab al-Ashir, 10th chapter, fi dhikri talbisi ala sufiya, his deception upon the sufiya. And the sufiya here, it refers to a group of people from amongst the zuhad, the ascetics. And here it doesn't refer to all the sufiya, but those sufiya who associate themselves to tasawwuf and have added many innovations and many unlawful things to tasawwuf itself. So Iblis uses this as a method to deviate the sufiya. Al-Bab Hadi Ashar, 11th chapter, fi dhikri talbisihi, his talbis upon the mutadayyinin, the practicing people, bima yushbihu al-karamat, with what is similar to karamat, supernatural acts. So in Islam we believe that supernatural acts can manifest at the hands of pious people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, this sometimes it can be used as a means of deviating people by Iblis. Okay, so what happens is that Iblis actually makes illusions, and it seems as though people are performing these acts, but it can be a means of deception. So he's mentioned a chapter on that as well. Al-Bab al-Thani Ashar, the 12th chapter, dhikr talbis al-awam, is the talbis that he uses, the deception he uses against the awam. The awam refers to the general public. So the general public, he uses this method to deviate them as well. Many methods to deceive them as well. And the 13th chapter, fi dhikr talbisi al-kull, his deception upon everyone, bitatwil amal, in stretching or in lengthening their hopes. So he gives them long hopes and makes them forget about death, and makes them forget about the end of their lives, and makes them forget about all of these things, which is also one of the ways to become deviated. So these are the 13 issues he mentions, or chapters he mentions in the book, summarizing the book. Now, one of the good things I like about this book, I just want to quickly show you an example. Let's say, for example, in the book we find is that every incident or every statement, he has what we call a sanad for it. He has a transmission for it. Now this chain of narrators, which we normally find for the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he has it for any incident that he finds. So even let's say, for example, here, a statement of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he has a whole chain from him all the way to Imam Shafi'i. So let me just move this bit up here, and let me just show you. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, so what he does is, let's say he says sami'tu. Okay, this is what he says, I heard. Now he heard from Abdullah ibn Hussein Ali al-Muqri, who he says, I heard from Abu Muhammad Abdullah ibn Atah. He says, I heard from Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Iskandari. He says, I heard from Abu Mansur al-Azdi. He says, I heard from Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Hamd ibn Farrasha, who says, I heard from Ahmad al-Mansur, who says, I heard from al-Hasan ibn Muhammad al-Tabari, who says, I heard from Muhammad ibn al-Mughira, who says, I heard from Yunus ibn Abd al-A'la, who says, I heard from al-Imam al-Shafi'i. So subhanallah, look how many people are mentioned here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, should we do this? 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, 10 people, I mean including Imam Shafi'i, 10 people up to the statement of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah says, his statement is this, okay, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ رَجُلًا, if you see a man min ashab al-hadith, from amongst the people of hadith, or if I see a man from amongst the people of hadith, فَكَأَنِّي رَأَيْتُ رَجُلًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم, it's as though I see a man from amongst the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So subhanallah, I mean, and this is amazing what he does. He means the whole chain of narrators, all the even up to the smallest of statements. I mean, here obviously it's not a small statement, very great statement that Imam Shafi'i makes, but there's other examples as well. So that's introduction to the book. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment box. Jazakumullah khair. So let's just go back to so this is basically the book, and I hope if you have any comments or anything, you can leave them in the comments box. Jazakallah khair.